So many of you have heard about Mount Washington and the success that we've had in covering the mine and reducing the pollution in the river. And again, this was done by a true partnership. We often talk about partnerships, we often talk about collaboration. This is something that Nancy mentioned in her presentation on the collaboration continuum. But what's it really mean? When is it really active and working? And that's what we have to ask ourselves. I mean, there's a sit around and talk, but it's the doing. It's when you get down to it. And this has been the success that we've had with our partnership with Timber West, the province, EFO, several other players including that. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Chris, and he's going to tell you more about our partnership.
Good morning. I'm Chris Cole. I'm an Environment and Resource Integration Specialist with Timber West. Just recently joined Timber West last fall, actually. Originally started working with Timber West as a summer student in the mid-90s, right here in Corking, actually, when they used to have an office up by Logging Road. So Timber West funded my education, but after I finished school, I went for consulting companies and that up throughout the province, and then the last 10 years I've had my own little engineering and construction company. And after having 4 kids, realized that I can't be running around all over the place looking for work and making money. It's time to concentrate a little bit on balancing things out. And so there was an opportunity to come and work with Timber West as a result of a recent ownership change in the company. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And so I turned to Nanaimo and started working with them last fall. It's a description of my role at the company. It reflects a little bit of a change in the company and direction of business management of our private lands. We work heavily with a lot of groups Jackson, the job is involved with, and basically what we need to try to sort out, and one thing that the collaboration and the partnerships are great with, is trying to sort out what to do on the, and what to plan for moving forward, and what the science says, and what's defensible, and all these things versus what people's emotions are, and wishes are, and wants are, and that's something that's been really interesting to me, and I look forward to working with some of those different ideas over time, and separating the two, and working the two together. I'm going to talk a little bit about a successful partnership in Solom, the Mount Washington copper mine, and then I'll talk a little bit about Timber West plans in terms of moving forward, where we're at, and how we might be affecting you guys in your watersheds in your backyards. This is Timber West generally, with 325,000 hectares of private land in southwestern Vancouver Island. And we manage another 150,000 hectares of public land between the Campbell River and Fort McNeil and Johnson Strait. We have offices in Vancouver, Campbell River, and Nanaimo, and various log sorts and seed orchard down in Mountain and Saanich. Timber West, 2 years ago, the public sector employees, or public sector investment board, and it's a federal pension fund in Ottawa, and the BC Asset Management Corporation in Woodbury. So that was one of the biggest differences, that now that Timber West has long-term ownership, there's a very long-term planning horizon and a very long-term focus on return investments and things. When you're owned by a publicly traded company on the stock market, the focus is on return on investments in that quarter and your commitments to shareholders. So that's really, in terms of sort of a whole watershed management and all the environmental values, all the social values, all that kind of stuff, that's probably had the biggest impact recently than anything else. Really just a change in ownership and change in focus. Instead of getting return on investment in that quarter or in that year, you have net return on investment in 60 or 80 years, and you have steady cash flow coming in from government employees' pension contributions, right? So you want to make sure that you have a return on that investment in 60, 40, 60, 80 years, 100 years, and in perpetuity, really. So that's why it matches very well with the land ownership and the privately held forest. So the project that Jack mentioned was the Mount Washington copper mine, and so Timber West has been involved with different partnership groups since it was formed in 1993, which is 21 years ago. And that's something maybe too that a lot of people sort of don't realize is over time. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but as land is bought and sold, there's a financial value associated with that, and a lot of the privately held lands that Timber West has today have changed ownership at least 11 times, sometimes more than that, over time. So every time land is bought and sold, there's a value associated with that, and each time it ratchets up. So it's it gets to the point eventually where it's a good situation to have something like a pension fund who wants to retain ownership of the land, but actually purchasing land or say buying it with the watershed, that just becomes economically infeasible, right? So the best bang for your buck is to work with the owner and work with the different groups like this and figure things out together. So the Solom watershed, 25,000 hectares, outlined in yellow here. The copper mine shown by the red star. See Crookie down here in green. The mine's 25 kilometers away from Courtney, and it's just north of the ski hill. You can see the ski hill just south of the star there. It's a relatively benign watershed, no unstable slopes or soils in there, no water community intakes, anything like that in that watershed. The issue was with fish, and so the copper mine was leaching copper into Murex, into Pyrotite Creek, and down into the Solom River system and killing fish. So the fish would either die or they'd retreat. So the problem was created in the mid-60s. For some reason, I'm not sure what all the history is here, but this is what we have to deal with. So this is how we dealt with it. There was a copper mine that was in operation in 1964 for 3 years. It produced about 18,000 tons of copper over the 3 years. They moved 1 million tons of material. 400,000 tons went to a ball mine, shown here. They only got a 2% recovery rate of copper out of that operation over the 3 years. As a result, they went bankrupt and walked away. The huge mess. So you can see everything there around me. So that's what we've got to deal with. There's a picture of the pit in 1992. Just going back in history a little bit here. Gives you an idea what was left in the mid-60s up until that time frame. During that whole time, of course, toxic copper concentrations were leaching down, and it had killed off all the fish and through right down the ocean through the system.
Yeah, there was at its worst there was evidence right into yesterday.
Yeah. So just going through history here, in 1992, province started talking about realizing we need to do something like this, need to correct the problem. Things always take longer than expected, as Kim was just alluding to. And so they did a little bit of work in there, but only had a 20% reduction in copper concentrate coming out. Basically repiled the sandbox, moved the materials around, tried to recap it. Early 2000s, moving forward, still had very high concentrations of copper coming out down through the creek systems and down the Solom River, even as the 70 parts per billion there, down and I believe around 30 parts per billion is toxic to fish, and 2 parts per billion vertebrates are sensitive to that. So it's a pretty significant dose still through 2000. 2003, as a result of the Solom River Restoration Society, the Solom River Partnership was formed, and the work of the partnership created this project and got this to happen. You can see in the yellow there, it's a line, so there's a diversion creek that was dug there in an attempt to get some of the copper out of the water system, so the copper ran through into this wetland here. And so some of the copper settled out and got filtered basically through the creek system before it went down. It had a significant impact, but it was still just a temporary solution. Sooner or later, the copper concentrate is going to get filled up there and continue flowing. So the partnership worked further through till 2008, and the solution was to cover and bury the whole thing with a water impermeable membrane. Worked through that through 2009. 2010, a couple of years. To give you an idea for the size, it was 12 hectares in size. The size of BC Place Stadium is 5 hectares. To give you an idea of the scope and the size of the project. It's massive. 2010, for continuing to bury, we brought in topsoil over top, and then the plan was to revegetate it eventually. Over 250,000 tons of material was moved on site. Down to post-capping here, you can see a significant drop in copper concentration. And then after 2010, then the water in the yellow line there was diverted back into the original channel, so it didn't flow through the swamp anymore. So in this graph provided by Jack there just shows the general trend from 2009 up to 2012 in reduction in copper concentrate. And, I'm going to go through this fairly quick. If you want any more details, you can talk to me afterwards about this in terms of our time. So the award-winning Solon River Partnership continues today because there was a single local stewardship group that focused on and communicated clearly on this one project, and I think that was that really led to this success. Right, we really focused on this project, and an additional legacy is that teamwork, that cooperation, that group is still intact today, and that so changed the partnership focus. You know, from the mine, we're still monitoring, but there's lots of other projects in Solon that we can do, and continue to work on that. And the goal is one day to have a healthy fish population and hopefully some drinking water coming with it. I'm going to back up a little bit to talk just a little bit about watersheds and how Timber West might fit into your picture as watershed managers as well, and working together and partnering. Here's some of the district boundaries here in this local Comox Valley that Kim introduced. And one thing that when I put this together, and we were having a quick discussion on this, and we weren't sure how the actual boundaries were formed or what they were based on. And that brings up questions, so I don't know if anybody can help me with that later, but I'd be interested to know the history there and see how that works, because it certainly doesn't seem like they use watershed boundaries. It would be very convenient if they did. Right? Because generally that's how we manage our landscape, is by watersheds. Everything is based on watersheds and on water. It comes back to the basics. So here's a bunch of watersheds that are local here. The Swollen, Oyster, Browns, Comox Lake, Powers. We've got the regional districts in here, and we've got Comox and Cumberland, of course. So you can see pretty quickly that we need partnerships and we need cooperation if we're going to achieve any watershed level goals. We can do our own thing up on hill slopes in the privately held forestry land, but I'm not sure that there's really been very much communication in terms of what we do and what you guys value at the bottom of the hill. Because really what we do, definitely we know that it definitely affects water quality, water quantity, all kinds of things like that. So there's definitely some opportunity to discuss some of those things, maybe blend some values there. Just stepping back, this is just an arbitrary watershed. Just to give you an idea of what I see when I think of a watershed. So rather than this, it's just too complicated. There, make things simple, right? You get a watershed, water flows downhill, and you pick your point of conversion, whether it's a bridge crossing, the water intake, the ocean, a lake, the river, right? We break it down like this, and then we break it down further into subbasins. So we talk in terms of watersheds and subbasins. And then once we break it down into watersheds and subbasins, then we can start making some management plans and decisions on how we manage the land base and effectively what sort of incomes or what kind of outcomes come out of that, and how it might affect drinking water intakes, water purveyors, and everyone else downslope. So we get our GIS wizards to put all this stuff together for us so that we can just click layers on and off and use the information and make decisions, right? So that those guys are essentially very key to us. So here's some of the things we start looking at: rainfall data, creek flow data. There's really hundreds of layers of GIS information that we look at, and behind each layer there's tons of data and information, consultant reports, and all this stuff, right? So you really have to start looking at all that. And once you compile all that, you start making decisions, right? So I think that's where we can start to have some discussions in terms of partnerships and what we're doing. There's some issues that come up a lot, and others that are not so much. But there's maybe things that we think about and plan for that maybe you don't even consider. Some of the wildlife stuff, or some of the construction techniques and things like that that do affect water and general watershed health. So I started to talk a little bit about Timber West in terms of who we are, where we're going. So this is the southeast quadrant of Vancouver Island, and the white is Timber West ownership up in the north of Crown land that we manage for forestry, for tree production. 90% of the Vancouver Island population lives in this southeast quadrant, so that's why I have lots of interaction with you guys. Timber West owns 11% of Vancouver Island and manages 15%. So we realized that our business requires the confidence of government agencies, our certifiers that certify our product that we sell, our customers, and our neighbors. Our customers are really global, all over Asia, all over Europe, all over North America. But really it requires everybody to work together in terms to make the whole business model work successfully over the long run. And I discussed a little bit about the change of ownership and focus, and so that's really allowed us now to make some solid plans going forward, make some long-term plans. We no longer have to worry about return on investment in the short term in the quarter for the shareholder. We're looking at long-term investment. There's been a huge focus to change to retain as much land as possible. Everybody knows you're not making any more real estate, so we're firmly hanging on to whatever we have. And then we realized that that's the best long-term investment for us, is to hang on to that real estate. There's a company called Cooperton, which is sort of a sub-company out of Timber West, you might have heard of. So that was created during 2009, 2010, when the log market dropped off. Basically, the basic recession that we've just went through, and so in order to make money for shareholders, you had two options. You can sell, you can log more, log as fast as you can. So log prices are dropping, you can increase the volume, you make the same amount of money, or you can start selling off real estate, right? So Timber West tried to do both at the same time as fast as they could, and so like the harder they tried, the more the market dropped, right? So it just didn't work, and so that's why they changed ownership, and that's good to realize that it's a huge relief, for us in the industry, and it should be for you guys too, in terms of long-term focus. So here's a quick update. Here's our owners: BC Investment Management Corporation, Victoria, and Public Sector Pension Fund Investment Board in Ottawa, and corporate office in Vancouver. Basically, our CEO, a few lawyers and accountants and log marketers. NIMO office has our South Island operations and North Island operations around our Campbell River. We're set up as a contractor model with 95 staff employees, and everything else is contracted out. So a long time ago, there used to be sawmills, there's pulp mills, there's all this big, huge operations under predecessor companies. We had over 12,000 employees at one point, and today we're 95. So that means we need to rely heavily on contractors, consultants, and local expertise, basically. So we need logging contractors, silviculture people, forestry people, all these different people to make the operation work. Right now we have over 1,000 direct jobs just in direct contracts with Timber West. and approximately 2,200 in indirect. And that's something that's hard to measure, but we certainly want to keep track of that and increase that over time. So with our log sorting and hauling there, I just added a note here to remind myself about our product is basically a log for various customers. So we sell that on the open market. We sell it overseas, we sell it domestically to the U.S. Someone considered the U.S. as our domestic market, but U.S., British Columbia, North America. And so we have 100 different sorts of different species, grades, lengths, all these different specifications of our logs. So it's not, you think of one log going somewhere, it's not really like that. There's guys with full-time jobs trying to match what customers need, so that's our end product. And there's certainly a lot of logs available for anybody locally too, if anybody wants to start a sawmill or do anything else like that. There's certainly lots of wood available. Our business is growing trees for customers' needs. We plan to purchase 6 million tree seedlings per year. Again, that's all contracted out. We have our seed nursery and our seed production in Saanich, or our seed orchard. And from there we produce seed for ourselves, but also for many other clients across British Columbia and Pacific Northwest. And all the nursery operations, everything's contracted out, all the planting. And our harvest is based on incremental growth and on markets. And now with the new ownership, we have flexibility of reducing our cut when the market drops off. And we're sort of in the process of that right now. The market's been really hot for the first half of the year. The market's softening a little bit, so we're pulling back production. So we'll wait and let the trees grow until the prices come up a little bit, try to pull back some of the supply. There we go. Here's what to work with on our private lands. Put this in context. Just we talk cubic meters and board feet and things like that generally in forestry. I changed it to log truck loads because it's easy to visualize and quantify. So on our private land base, not including the crown land that we manage up north, trees grow at a cumulative average rate across our private lands at 4.7 log truck loads every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it seems like a big number, but it's a huge land base, 325,000 hectares. So that's what we've got to work with. It was a good solid base. We know that every hour of every day, that's how much we wrote with that. Got a team of foresters, biologists, engineers, GIS wizards, critically important these days. Make their own label. Our assets are obviously our people. We need to manage everything properly in order to make things go forward in the long run. Our land and soil, again, I talked about retaining real estate and property, and our trees and our water course. And of course, these are all natural assets, right? So we know that generating wealth is generated by growing trees over the long run, over and over again. Selling land provides money, short-term cash, but it certainly doesn't help you out 100 years from now. So our vision is, nature is our golden egg-laying goose. So it's definitely an asset. Our job is to balance economic, social, and environmental needs, put all those things together. So that's what partnerships and collaboration is all about. Our job is also to look forward and look ahead. We need to address things like climate change. We know obviously May was the hottest record on month in our history here. May 1st over in Port Alberni, they had 30-30 crossover already. And the 30-30 crossover is in terms of forestry and fire suppression wildfires, it's less than 30% humidity and greater than 30 degrees Celsius. So on May 1st, very early in the year, these things happen. So that's when we get a very high hazard for forest fires. Basically, when you get to that situation, then anything on fire basically balloons out and continues to blow a little bit of wind, and it just spreads at the rate of wind, as fast as the wind can blow up. So that's early in May, early in the year on the BC West Coast. sort of a big signal to us that this climate change thing is here, it's right now, and we need to do our best to figure it out. Recently, some of the changes, the biggest changes in the last 10 or 15 years generally is, as Jack alluded to, riparian management. Streams are definitely a manageable asset that we keep track of. We know from our history and all the legacy that we've got to deal with in the past when logging crews went in and clear cut everything progressively, started at the bottom of the valley and progressed right through and clear cut all the stream sides and everything. And then we're still dealing today with some slope instability and debris flows and unstable channel banks and all that. It takes hundreds of years for that to repair itself if it's just left alone. So that's what I think a lot of these projects come together. We're hoping to increase that, shorten that time period, right? So remove stabilized slopes and improve riparian areas. A lot more increased interaction with stakeholders and community groups. I know in the past, even in the 15, 20 years ago, or even when I was a summer student at Timber West in the mid-90s, the attitude was, no, this is our private land, we can do whatever the hell we want, and if you don't like it, that's not. So that was a very short history, right? It's not that long ago, but it takes hundreds of years for these natural ecosystems to change. So moving forward, we realize that's definitely need to work together here, and especially with our contractor model and locals. Increased awareness and preparation for climate change. We need to deal with that. We need to make sure we're planting trees that are going to be alive in 80 or 100 years from now that can adapt to climate change. Increased awareness of biodiversity and planning how all the natural systems work together to minimize our long-term costs. I talked a little bit about the carbon forestry cycle here. Certainly, you've probably heard a lot about this in the news and things. I'll skip through this pretty quickly, but you can certainly talk to me about this after or at any time. Discussing certain things, I think we're pretty lucky to live in an area where we have all these forests absorbing carbon dioxide from the air, right, and providing oxygen for us. And it's something that we need to, we're certainly well aware of, and certainly need vigorous, healthy, fast-growing forests to absorb carbon dioxide. Even if it doesn't go over the Pacific from China, it's still our job to absorb it, right, so we get clean air to breathe, and so we can help to decrease the rate of global warming and absorb carbon dioxide and sequester that carbon. Right, so you probably heard a little bit about the BC Wood First Act, introduced in 2009. It's a little older now, but that was sort of an attempt at that end to raise awareness about how we can absorb carbon from the atmosphere and store it in wood products and carbon. We're exploring ways of using that, we call it on the stump storage, so we can store that carbon on the stump, say in riparian areas, and there's value to that versus cutting it down and using it in wood products and storing it there in the long run, and making those wood products last for many, many years. And on that note, just something to think about here. This slide of a temple in Japan, Gyoji Temple, built in 607 AD. And we talked a lot about earthquakes and things too. 46 huge earthquakes, things still standing. It's sequestered carbon from the atmosphere for 1,400 years. So I think there's certainly some things we can learn from working with our neighbors and for it. And just one last slide here. This actually came from one of my girls. I'm still pretty young, but I've been married for 18 years. And I thought this was a good thought. It kind of relates a little bit to marriage, but also to our partnerships and working together, right? So it's always a little bit of effort and hard work. And I think that, from my feedback I've got so far, I think we're, somewhere between coming together and staying together, but certainly not at working together. So that's something that I thought was a sort of a good visual to strive for maybe in the long run, right? We're going to be around for a while, so it certainly feels like we're staying together in some of these partnerships, but a little more traction.